Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour. I'm your host, Matt Hawkins, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Ed Carbajal. Ed, we are in the Pennington era, but we are out of the Vulcan
Hmm.
era. So how's it going, brother?
Uh, Pretty good, man. I got some stuff on the horizon. It'll probably be a part of next week's podcast that I'm really excited to share, but I'll save that for next week. But so just something fun that I feel like the sport needs right now. Buddy of mine's working on a documentary. You probably seen me post some stuff about it, the Neglia Nexus. I just finished talking to him, doing a write up on it, and I did an interview with him. So we'll probably add that to next week's podcast for the extra audio content and video. I'll probably chop them together depending on how things go between now and then. But we got a lot to talk about, man. You were at UFC 298. We got our UFC 300 announcement. So I don't know what you want to get into first. I'm happy to get into either.
I mean, yeah, let's just go to the 300 real quick, since that'll be the quicker topic. Uh, Alex Bahia against Hill announced for the light heavyweight title. Um, kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, it wasn't on my radar, but I guess it should have been. I just figured that Hill would be out longer with his injuries.
Yeah. I thought the same thing. I didn't think we were going to see him return so soon, and coming back off an injury like that too. It's also makes me question the matchup and how excited I should be for it. I mean, maybe it's me, but I feel like a guy coming off an injury needs like a warm up fight before you go taking on any someone like Pajeda or but
He gave up the title,
and
though. He was the title. He just gave it
oh
up.
yeah,
I
I
get it.
know. I'm just saying that in general, the matchup against somebody as Dana White was talking about a lot. It was in the marketing for it and everything, like how fast Pajeda came up and what he's done. And I don't know. I just feel like a warm up fight would have been better. But I think what we're seeing is that people are varied in their reactions to the UFC 300 main event, and I feel like what we're seeing is the fallout of having too many events and having too many fighters, already busy or coming off of something that they can't be ready for some big mega event. Um, like Brendan Schaub's, I saw, and I, rarely agree with him on stuff because he's kind of goofy or whatever. But he made the point of I forgot Dana White even said that we were going to be blown away by the main event, and I mean the only I'm blown away, but
A
not.
documentary was going to be made about it.
Yeah, and then I'm blown away in not in the way that I thought I was gonna be blown away. I'm blown away more like But with the UFC pay per views these days, like whatever they announce, we could lose that the night before too. So I'm not too keen on you know I'm not too keen on trying to get too excited about any sort of event. So we'll see what
Yeah,
happens
yeah, we'll
when the
see.
day
The
comes.
card's it's a good card right now. It just didn't give you that big flash main event that I think everybody was
Hmm.
expecting. But we said it since day one. The expectation was never going to be lived up to. People were acting like this was going to be like a 10 title fight card, and it's same thing happened 200. It's all of them. The difference is that this one doesn't have a main event that's like an accumulation, of a storyline coming to an end or something. There's really nothing created this fight other than Jamal Hill, blowing his Achilles and coming back. I guess that's the storyline to get the
Hmm.
title against the guy that picked up his title while he was gone. So we can go with that storyline. But 100 had a lot. 200 would have had one with Jones Cormier, and then I mean
Hmm.
that turned out to be kind of the coronation of Amanda Nunes that night. But now we'll see where
Yeah.
this one goes. But still got a couple events then. March 9th, we have UFC 299. And then this last weekend, Saturday night, was 298 out here in Anaheim, California. The first of what apparently will be 3 UFC events in the Honda Center in 2024.
Hmm.
Um, it was a fun night. My seats weren't great. Kind of I was up there, so that'll be modified. I'll figure out a game plan for my next event on that one.
I got a question for you. One thing, like watching from from where I was watching on TV, it seemed like the crowd. I'm not used to a crowd in California. Kind of, I guess I don't want to say it's being so bloodthirsty or whatever, but there was a lot of points in action that were like from my point of view. I guess even they even said Rogan and Bisping were kind of like what's going on here? Like these are good grappling exchanges on the ground, and people were booing a lot. I don't know if you caught that vibe as being in house there, but you're also a little bit smarter than.
Yeah, I don't remember a lot of booing, but I might have just kind of blacked it
Mhm,
out.
mhm,
It was a late arriving crowd. I was kind of bragging to a buddy who went to his
mhm,
first event that I thought that the Anaheim crowd would be a cool crowd because I thought they'd be early arriving. It was more of a Vegas style arrival time. You had the upper level fill up, and then that lower level was fairly empty until the main
mhm,
card started. So that was a surprise. Um, I didn't notice anything out of the ordinary crowd wise. It's a big arena. It's not bigger than T-Mobile, but it's oval, so it's got the ends are deep out there. It's a hockey arena, much like T-Mobile, but uh, similar. But I digress from that. Other than that, though, the fights, yeah, I mean, there were some ups and downs. There was some great fights. There was some slow fights, but I think for me, when it was all said and done, the reason I go to these fights still
mhm,
after all these years is for what happened in that main event. Um,
mhm,
I go to these now to see history, to see what I believe eventually will be maybe the next great thing. And I didn't necessarily think that going into this fight. I was kind of thinking Volkanovski would hold on, but we saw I saw the end of basically of Volkanovski's run, and Topuria looked like a straight killer who has a right hand that's a missile, and um, he's got some good challenges. Holloway, if Holloway manages to survive Gagey, win or lose,
mhm.
just if he manages to survive,
Yeah.
creates a nice matchup for him, and stylistically, potentially a hell of a banger standing up. But you know, I don't know if anything jumped at you at the card, but most of the card,
Well,
it was pretty good top to bottom.
I mean, the one thing that jumped at me as far as the main event goes was the concern that I mentioned on last week's podcast, where I said this is going to be the fight that lets me know, if Volkanovski's, the old man jokes and everything, they're fun or whatever leading up to the fight, but I think we got the answer to like what now my concern has been underlined. Too many fights in too little amount of time, no recovery, and the damage being carried like starting to wear on him because I mean, like not to take away from Topuria, but the I feel like a fresher, not so busy Volkanovski probably would have had a tougher chin, but getting KO'd by before and literally coming back. So I feel like he's almost fighting. It's like he's fighting every other month the way he's been, and I like Volkanovski. I wanted him to win, but this was what happened. Was kind of like the thing that I was worried about, and then when we got the result that we got, now I'm just like, it takes 6 months, dude. Don't I know he wants to rematch and all that stuff right away, but take 6 months, take time,
He can't
let
have a rematch. He needs to
yeah.
take time off. He's been knocked out twice in a row. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think I from what I saw, I don't think he rebounds to become a world champion. Not against a guy like Topuria. It just felt like Topuria was too quick.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Volkanovski just didn't have an answer on the feet. I don't think at his age he's going to be able to dominate on the ground like he used to. So or moments he had in the past. Um, I just don't see it. I think it was the passing of the torch,
Mm-hmm.
which there's nothing wrong with. Volkanovski had a hell of a run. He's a Hall of Famer, an all-time great. But um, I mean, Topuria just put on a career performance. I mean, that's what it was. And I kind of called his shot. I tapped my buddy on the shoulder, and he was
Mm-hmm.
throwing that right hand, and I go, man, Volkanovski's circling to his left. I go, that right hand's there. I go, if he
Yeah.
throws it, and he started throwing it, and then he just missed it. And my buddy goes, hey, you called that one, and I go, keep watching it. I go, keep watching, and it wasn't. It was a minute later, that he circled into that right hand and got caught.
Yeah.
Um, it was kind of predictable, which maybe was, for someone like me just to be able to kind of see that unfolding. Obviously, tells me that Volkanovski was leaving a lot open for someone like Topuria. If I could see it,
Mhm.
um, he's certainly going to take advantage of it. But I mean, I don't know. I was I went in rooting for Volkanovski, but I went out, giving a standing ovation to Topuria and recognizing that we have a guy. He seems like a really coal dude too. That's the other thing. He seems like a family man. Seems real friendly, but he just seems like a
Mhm.
straight killer in that cage. And I like the respect that him and Volkanovski showed prior to that fight. That's the stuff I like. I don't need to see. I can see a brutal knockout. I don't need two guys who hate each other. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? That's and then are jabbing each other's, going after each other's wives and stuff. Don't need any of that. This is what I want to see every fight. I want to see two guys shaking hands, saying how much they respect each other, and then going out there and trying to knock each other's head off. That's
Mhm.
what that's what I want this sport to be.
You know, the co-main event. I don't know what your take on that. It seemed to be a discrepancy on stoppages or not stop. I'm thinking about the main event. Sorry, but what was your take on the Whitaker? The main co-main event being in house.
I mean, I like Costa.
Mm-hmm.
And not because he's the greatest fighter in the world, but I think Dana White said it well that he comes to fight every time, and that's what I said when I saw him fight Romero. You see a guy who's taking it seriously, and I think he came out taking it seriously. He landed that wheel kick, which is,
Mm-hmm.
anytime you see a man of that size landing something like that,
Yeah.
it's different. It's just different. Um, I kind of wished I'd knocked him out because I would have got to witness a all-time highlight.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I like Robert Whitaker. I said he's a badass dude. I said last week, and he rebounded. He answered the question that we got on the podcast last week about his chin. He
Mm-hmm.
took a wheel kick from a 230-pound man and managed to rebound and win the next two rounds. Um, Fairly decisively.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was good. I enjoyed the fight. Um, I enjoyed the fight. It would have been nice if
Yeah.
Whitaker would have had a little more. Costa would have had a little more offense in the second and third round, maybe just to create a little bit more chaos. But Whitaker just picked him apart after that first round. So
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed this fight. I enjoyed the 15 minutes of the fight.
Yeah. Yeah. Fun. It was a fun fight, but for me, like the fight that I was looking forward to, kind of, the Cejudo and Marab. Um, I enjoyed watching that fight. The first round was probably the more exciting round as far as drama because of that inside shovel left hook that Cejudo landed on Marab. It looked like it, shook it, rattled his cage a little. But I mean, to underline the durability of Dvalishvili, man. I mean that kid is something else. The fight went as I expected. I mean, Cejudo's tough as nails. You're not going to finish him, but um, I think, like, again, talking about passing of the torch. If there was a time that Cejudo said this was going to be the fight to let him know if he go back to retirement, and he took off his gloves at the end of it. I know they didn't give him his time with the mic, but it's like Dana White said in a post fight press conference, it's Marab's night, and he certainly capitalized on it.
Yeah, I thought it was a fun fight. I thought it was exciting, pretty much start to finish. Again, I didn't expect that as much. But I know that the crowd was
Mhm.
into it. I know that it wasn't even though it had some moments of grappling, obviously there wasn't I didn't hear booze for that fight, so I enjoyed it. Thought it was good. Went like kind of I expected him to grind it out. Um, I thought it was kind of cool to see all these years later in the same arena in the same cage. Him pick up Cejudo was very similar to Hughes and Trigg. Um, Carried him across the ring
Oh,
and dumped him. Same arena, in Anaheim, so same stadium. So,
wasn't Trig refereeing some fights that night
and he
too?
was, he was, and I mentioned
Hmm.
that. I actually mentioned that again to my friend. I said, that guy was famous, good, really good fighter. I go, you'll see his highlight later, probably getting thrown,
Hmm.
carried across the ring, and then it happened again. So that was kind of cool to see. What else? Anthony
The,
Hernandez looked great. I thought his fight was really fun with Kopylov.
just
Finished with
just
the
be,
rear naked choke. Go ahead.
just because we were talking about Trig and all them, it made me think of, I didn't even have it listed on my notes, but now it hit me now. the Wanderlei Silva Hall of Fame announcement.
That was cool.
Yeah, I mean you were there to hear it at like what was the crowd reaction? I know they always show the shots at home, but like you being there, like I mean Wanderlei's
The
somebody
crowd's
that
reaction is great, but most of the crowd there doesn't truly. Most of them weren't even alive. I mean, you know what I mean? Like we're talking, we're getting old, and when
yeah.
especially fight years wise, because careers we're moving on to several generations now of seeing guys fight. I mean, I can't even explain to somebody how much Vanderlei Silva's meant to me as a fan of this sport and as
Mm-hmm.
somebody who got involved in it and who's not a fighter, not a promoter, nothing of that crap. Nothing of that. I don't mean crap, but no, I'm not. I don't do any of that. I'm just around the fights. I'm a big fan. I help people who I can when it's around the fights, and he's been one of the guys that I mean, just the story I've told you about hearing about a guy from the Brazilian jungle, and
Mm-hmm.
then training with Mark Hall when he fought in IVC2, and seeing Vanderlei Silva's name on the other side of the 8-man bracket that night. Um, I knew who he was. I didn't know I hadn't seen him fight at that point, but I knew the name because I had read articles on tapout.com and
Mm-hmm.
inyaface.com, some of the old school websites, Ad Combat, some of the Full Contact Fighters, some of the 90s websites where you got your weekly news. You didn't even get
Mm-hmm.
daily stuff. So I mean he was just to me he's what this in a perfect world everybody would be Vanderlei Silva's and and everybody would be knocking each other's heads off with soccer kicks and knees to the
Mm-hmm.
head. That's what I that there'd be a lot of damaged fighters, but it'd be a hell of a lot fun to watch.
Was there any like? Do you think there was any kind of like odd, like how the acoustics of the arena? Because there was that one with Mackenzie Dern and her her opponent. She thought she won, and
Yeah.
like I don't know if it was from getting because she did get her belt rung, and that was at the end of round two. So I don't know if that was part of that where she thought she won or what happened, but
See, here's the thing. I didn't from my seats way up top and rooting for
mm,
her. I kind of thought she won. Now I
mm,
didn't. It wasn't until I went on Twitter and I saw that I was in the wrong because people that I have respect for were telling me, or not telling me, but posting that
mm,
Lemos won the fight. Um, so maybe just in her mind she had thought she won, and when she just heard the announcement she just assumed it. I'm
mm,
kind of thinking that. I don't think it has to do with the acoustics. I mean, she's right next to him. Now from where I'm sitting the
mm,
acoustics aren't great,
mm,
and so I didn't hear specifically well, but I've seen it. We've seen it in other arenas. We've seen it in other
mm,
places. I think it's more of a mental thing. I think they just block out everything that's going out, and in their minds, they just think they won, and they hear the announcement, and it's just I feel like that's kind of what it is, more of a just a natural reaction, and then
mm,
your mind computes it, and then they realize that okay, that's not the name that was said, but
yeah.
I already kind of bursted out in celebration. So I don't know. I don't know what she would say. Names aren't similar, so that really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But
Yeah.
I think that's more what it was. I think in her head she thought she won. She might have been banged up, and not known exactly where she was either. So,
Mhm,
she might have remembered a second of the fight. Who knows? Who knows? But no, I don't think it was that. But I thought that was a good fight. I thought Dern came to fight, and that's another one I enjoyed. Like the last 7 fights of the night, other than the Machado Gary Neal fight,
mhm.
I enjoyed every one of them. Tafa stepping in for his brother is a
Yeah.
great story. He went out there and I got chopped down. Delima put on a great performance, chopped him down, and then eventually finished him.
Also, within 24 hours notice too, like I didn't
Yeah.
expect him to do well. Like I know people were giving all the respect and he was getting a lot of cheers, but I mean to think it would be cool if he had, if it didn't turn out the way
He
it
had a
did, but
puncher's chance. He went in with a
yeah.
puncher's chance, but he went in against a big heavyweight, a guy who's
I
bigger
know
than him.
I know he's like a straight kickboxing guy too.
Basically, yeah, and I'd even say more of
Mm,
just a slugger,
mhm,
And he went out there against a guy whose game plan was probably the same against his brother, was to kick his legs out,
mhm.
take his base away, and then take his power away from his punch. So, um, I thought that was a good fight. There was a couple other good early prelims, a
Yeah,
couple nice
Danny
knockouts.
Barlow and Josh Quinlan
That
was
was a
one
good fight. Yep.
that was one that I was on my radar because I've talked to Danny Barlow a few times. And one of the things that stood out, they showed it in his the lead up at the home when folks watch it, but he said it when he talked to me, and he said it when I saw another interview he did with I think it was like Fanatics View or something, and none of that. He James Lynch today. But before that, a couple of interviews. Every time you talk to him about what he brings to the cage that the UFC hasn't seen, he kept saying his thing is like he wants to present a new kind of entertainment where it's not just wins and quick knockouts. Like he's delivering on that. You look at that fight, he had a feeling out round. They fought, and he took it into the final round before he finished with I knew he was going to finish with a left hand, a hard left hand strike. And when he got that done, I was just like, man, this guy is like it's. I like watching fights that go, quick knockouts and quick finishes are entertaining as hell. But I mean, it's nice to see a fight, kind of build up to a finish like that. And that's what Barlow said he was going to bring to the UFC. And I have a feeling we'll see him bumped up to the main like prelims on ESPN, and then I wouldn't be surprised if he's like on a pay-per-view undercard by the end of this year.
Makes sense. That was a hell of a fight.
He's 8-0 now, yeah. So he's it.
Yeah, Nakamura dominated Carlos Vera to decision, and Minyang Zhang picked up a first round knockout over Bredson Ribeiro. Overall, I thought it was a good card. I imagine most people probably thought they got their money's worth. Now, obviously, if you're a Volkanovski fan, it didn't end the way you wanted to. But I mean, anybody just going in to watch good fights, I don't think you could have. I don't think you left it disappointed. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and that's the thing about this sport. A lot of people seem to they'll huff and puff if the fighter that they're rooting for didn't win. But you and I have been watching it long enough. I mean, how many times have I come in, or we both come on this podcast a week after a big event, and we were wrong about something, but if the fight was still good and they fought their fight, they just didn't come out on top. There's something of value to take away from that. It's what these guys live for. These guys and gals that fight, they live for that stuff, and it's kind of what makes the sport so unique, separate from like your regular stick and ball stuff. So I think it's pretty cool that this card kind of like. It felt like it felt like a Fox era UFC card. This card,
a little bit.
Yeah,
I can see that. I can see that for sure.
Like, not for nothing. I mean, we're going to talk about it, but like, people seem to agree with me. This UFC Mexico card that's coming this coming weekend, it's on ESPN Plus, and I'm like, yeah, not for nothing. This should be on regular ESPN, especially you're coming off of this pay-per-view. Like, there's probably people that like you could still grab this, and it's your first time back in Mexico. It doesn't have to be a pay-per-view, but it's still kind of a big deal. Like, this is the next week's main event is like flyweight like killers. Like, come on, man. Like, the UFC's I don't know. They might be too big for their own good, though. No, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm more surprised that Cinco de Mayo. I know it's not a Mexican holiday. I know it's a Mexican-American holiday. It falls on a Saturday this year, and I'm surprised that they're having UFC 301 on that day as opposed to something like this. I know it's another month and a half off, but I mean, how do you? I don't even understand. I can't even comprehend how you dropped the ball on that. How do you not have a UFC Mexico card on Cinco de Mayo in America? Do you know how many, and have it on regular ESPN? Do you know what the bars would be like?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even. I don't even know why so now you're going to do a pay-per-view, and all the people you're gonna lose out on sales because half the people are already gonna be drunk by the time the pay-per-view starts, especially on the East Coast. 10 o'clock is gonna hit. Ain't nobody gonna be buying a pay-per-view. You're gonna be 95 Coronas deep.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That seems odd to me, but I do like I like the top two cards of fights of this weekend. I know Raul Rosas Jr.'s earlier, and there are a couple good prelims, but top two cards are really pay-per-view level cards. Brandon Moreno versus Brandon Royval, and Yair Rodriguez versus Brian Ortega.
Let me bring that up. We might as well. So we're talking about.
Yeah, let's just go right into it right now for sure.
Because that's I mean, we've had Royval on the podcast, and I think that was he's doing his Contender Series fight before when we had him on the podcast.
Believe so.
I mean, the fact that this is all on ESPN Plus, we got ESPN. Mexicans don't be subscribing to ESPN Plus. You got to put that on regular ESPN so we can watch it. But I mean, I like what they're trying to do. They're just going about it in a really bad way. But you were talking about the
Top
main and co-main
short
event, yeah,
Yep. Yep.
yeah. These are like this is like pay-per-view level stuff.
That's what I'm saying. That
Yeah.
could be the middle of a pay-per-view and nobody would complain. They'd say they're getting two great fights on a pay-per-view card. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the Ortega returns after it seems like forever. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not even sure how he's still ranked, other than the fact that they're not real. You know what I mean? But
I don't know. What do you?
I don't even know how to really pick that fight. If I'm being
Yeah.
honest with you, I would say, this is a rematch too of a fight that
Mm-hmm.
ended in a was an eye poke several years ago, led to a bit of a mini riot inside the arena, famous for Bisbing, and I think it was Fitzpatrick diving under the desk. Um, to me, this is a fight Ortega should win, but I just in a world where Yair Rodriguez is the active fighter, like that's talk about a Twilight Zone upside down. Um, I'm gonna go with Yair Rodriguez to finish him. I think Ortega's just been gone too long, and I know he's got the grappling, but I don't know if I don't think his striking's gonna be good enough. I think Yair's just gotten better and better, and I'm gonna pick him to win.
That's a
Again, if
good
I
and
probably picked Ortega the first time, but I'm gonna take Yair this time just because of that
and
situation.
technically, yeah, Rodriguez has like the home, his home base advantage because even though Brian Ortega's Mexican, but he's he's your neck of the woods Mexican. He's not
We
Mexican.
all saw the Modelo commercial where he made the choice.
so so, but on the flip side, I feel like the time off might be really good. I mean, if he's coming in refreshed, injury free, and wants something to prove, that kind of makes him dangerous too. I mean, obviously the numbers, if these numbers are accurate, which that's always questionable on the UFC.com website, with what you said about and what we know about Rodriguez striking and the reach and height advantage that he has, that's going to be a problem for Ortega. It was kind of a problem the last time they fought, but if Ortega can use his pressure against him the way Frankie Edgar did when he fought Rodriguez, which I love bringing that up. I think Ortega's got a chance here. I see there's no odds listed for this fight either, so I'm wondering if that's on purpose because of the UFC's erroneous website, or if they're just odds makers are having trouble picking a fight.
Probably erroneous. I'm gonna go with the odds makers being able to do their job as opposed to whoever's running this website. Main event: Brandon Moreno, Brandon Royval. Royval coming off of a title loss to Pantoja.
Yeah, and I know this is a part two, but when they first went at it, an injury ended that fight.
Yeah, there wasn't a real one.
So
It was,
this is really their first time fighting for me.
I'm gonna go with Moreno. I think he's just better, stronger. I think he'll be able to beat up Royval. I think Royval only real chance is catch him in like a guillotine or a submission, something in a transition. But I just, as much as I want to see Royval win, I can't. I don't see him beating Moreno. Not the Moreno that we've seen since their first fight.
Yeah,
I can't see it. I just can't see it.
I mean, I see where you're coming from. This one is I don't want to make a pick because again, we've had Royval on the podcast. I'm a fan of the way he fights, and this is almost like I mean, it's funny because they're both named Brandon, and it's almost like they're fighting themselves as far as when you're looking at tenacity and just what they bring into what they're bringing to this fight. Which is it's weird that their last fight ended the way that it did. The only reason I lean Moreno is because that shoulder thing that happened when their first fight, and then Royval's had some stuff happen in training in between since that fight, and now like he's had other things that popped up. So I worry about, I don't want to say the durability of his body or whatever it is, but I wouldn't be surprised if something goes awry during the fight, not fight ending, but that messes with his movement, or he can't squeeze or something. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like I just feel like too much has happened to his body already, and in that sense, Moreno's coming in with the more iron frame, we'll say, and that's what makes me lean Moreno. But I think as far as like the way that they come to scrap both of them, it's anybody's fight to have. And again, man, you're fucking up UFC putting this on ESPN Plus. It should be on regular ESPN. But
Yeah,
since when do they care about their fans?
I don't know. Um, all right. Well, I think we should move to. There's a couple other big events this weekend.
There's a lot going on this weekend.
There is.
Yeah.
Quickly, there is a KSW event this weekend called KSW Epic. Um, it is an card that has everything on it. Mamed
Mm-hmm.
Khalidov headlining in a boxing match against a guy who's 53-6 as a boxer. Their heavyweight champ Vilda Freeze is in a grappling match against Josh Barnett. They have a 4-man light heavyweight tournament to crown their next MMA 205 champion. They have a
Mm-hmm.
Pride Rules match. They have a no holds barred Vale Tudo, anything goes other than I believe headbutts match. Um, and then they have normal MMA, and they have and they have a caged Muay Thai. So that's this Saturday. Also, it's on KSW Epic, I believe .tv is pay per view, or the other way people manage to watch it. I don't know if it's on
Mm-hmm.
Fight Network or not this time around. Although a lot of KSW is. But the one other than UFC Mexico and other than KSW that
The
we
early bird card.
KSW is early too, but this one will be about simultaneous with that. But we get PFL
Mm-hmm.
versus Bellator, champ versus champ, Saudi Arabia.
Riyadh season.
Yes, yes. The
Some changes to the card that some folks might not know about. Jesus Pineda is out against Pitbull, so now he's fighting Braga here. It was supposed to be Pineda, but I think he's withdrew due to injury, and I thought there was a moment where it looked like we lost the fight, then we didn't. Now it's this fight, so there's going to be open workout. I think was it tomorrow? There's an open workout tomorrow. Thursdays they're doing their final media day, which should be fun. But there's still somebody said that Bellator is carrying this card, the Bellator fighter names, and I kind of have to agree with that.
I don't think it's close. I think Bellator is going to carry every one of their events where their fighters are fighting, just because the names. Bellator did better job of PFL of getting their name fighters out there.
Mm-hmm.
Basically the sheiks in Saudi Arabia said, no, we want Patricio Pitbull on this card.
Mm-hmm.
You do whatever the hell you got to do. Don't be he's not fighting. They're not going for this week of cancel fight bullshit. They're gonna make sure that shit's not happening. Or if it happens, they're gonna get whoever they want on that card.
Yeah.
Money is not an issue. I don't think so. They made that happen. Top to bottom, he starts off with the heavyweight title. Is the you got the is that the okay? You got the prelims. Okay,
No,
I do like how they show the. I do like the presentation on their website compared to what we just came from the
it's
UFC.
the PFL website. Yeah.
We don't see any I don't know, shadow people and stuff. But main event right now, heavyweight
There's a
title.
couple.
Ryan Bader versus Henan Fahea.
Mhm.
I said it. I mean, I'm taking Bader to win this. I mean, eventually he's going to hit the wall at heavyweight. I just don't think this is the guy that's going to do it to him. I think if
I don't know, man. I mean, I've seen, I was when Fajeda won in New York, before he got the title. I covered that event, and seeing the guy, seeing both men, up close, and like Fajeda's the bigger dude, and watching him knock out the guy that he knocked out, the guy he slipped. John Jones was in his opponent's corner, and I'm forgetting the gentleman's name that he finished that night, but. I wouldn't be surprised. You're talking about puncher's chance against Ryan Bader. Bader's gonna use his wrestling against him, but
Yep,
yeah,
that's what I think is going to happen. I don't think it'll be pretty. I think he's going to grind him out and pick up the win.
mm-hmm. And I'd be lying if folks already probably know I'm Team Bellator all the way for this card. So
Yep. This one's even easier for me.
yeah,
Johnny Eblin versus Impa Kasanagayane.
Kasangane.
Kasangane. There you go. It sounds so easy when you say it. I'm taking Eblin 14-0. I'm taking him to win. I don't know how, but I don't see him losing this. There's just some guys that I don't think this is going to be the end of their run here, and I think Eblin has his sights on the UFC, and I think this is one more step to getting there before eventually they realize they don't really have 185 pounders to fight him, and um, he maybe pulls a Kayla Harrison and just goes. I
Yeah,
don't know. I don't know why that door's not open to a lot of these people.
Mm.
You know what I mean? They saw it happen. PFL can't go against UFC's lawyers, so I wonder if that'll be something we'll see down the line here.
But it's also, I think it also has a lot to do with the fighter too, because when you look, you said you mentioned Kayla Harrison. When you look at what she did during COVID, when the PFL wanted everyone to sit on the shelf, she put her foot down and said, "No, I'm not doing that." And she got to fight in Titan FC and Invicta, and then she would have had to fight in Titan FC had her opponent not, miss weight or whatever happened with that. But she would have had 2 fights that year, while everyone else was waiting around. So I think there's our boy Eric McCracken always the with the lawsuit coming in April, there was the cards that they could have filled out. I forget the name of those cards that the like Project Spearhead or whatever the hell those cards for the fighters to unionize. He was always kind of like saying, it's up to you to do it, and I think she's a good example of that. So, maybe they just need to. I don't know if it's their management, but I mean, Ali's her manager too. So, but I think it's just her putting her foot down. So, shout out to Kayla Harrison for kind of like low key paving the way to show people what's up. This fight with Pitbull, obviously, I'm picking Pitbull just because he's been ready, and this guy Braga was not the guy initially. So
no, Braga is 1-1 though. He's coming off the loss against Pinedo, but he's beat him earlier, so he's obviously he's 12-1. But I'll go with Pitbull. Pitbull's on the downhill slide. I just don't. I think this is similar in a sense to what we just did with Volkanovski. We saw Pitbull losing another weight class, and then he got upset in Japan and Ryzen.
Yeah,
I think we find out kind of is he back, or perhaps does he get caught, and is this the end of his run? So definitely, I'm glad to see him stay on the card, and I'm glad to I'm just glad to see him on the card.
Yeah. As long as these guys get to fight, because they need to keep the Bellator roster moving if you're going to claim to be a 2 promotion unit or whatever you're saying you are.
Yep.
The catchweight, I mean, still champions. Both Ray Cooper's former PFL champ, and current Bellator welterweight. But this is at catchweight. Jason Jackson versus Ray Cooper III. I mean, one thing I know about Cooper is if he lands any of those bombs early, could it be over early? My interview with him one of the previous seasons before he cut his hair, it's on the YouTube channel. Folks watch it a lot for some reason. It's one of the more watched videos on this channel. It's because that's when he was coming up before Ray Cooper III became a name because of the being together with the PFL. So he's definitely got a more than a puncher's chance, I would say, against Jackson. But Jackson seems more than confident in all the media and interviews I've seen him do. He seems more than ready. I mean, he kind of like the fact that they're doing it at a catchweight was something that Jackson saw coming before we all did, and he had mentioned that before they said it was catchweight. So I think he might have Ray Cooper's number.
Yeah, I think Jackson wins this. I think he's going to be big man in the cage there that night, not having to cut all the way down to 170. And I just think he's a better fighter. Seeing what he did to round out his Bellator run there, or keep it going, hopefully. But where he was at as a 301 when he won the title he's been on a hell of a run, and I think he's going to make fairly easy work of Cooper. Obviously, Cooper's got a big punch, but a lot of these guys do, and I think Jackson's just going to take him apart
for sure. We don't need to know who you're picking in that fight.
Nope.
Nemkov versus Capozola. I mean, I think I already said I'm Team Bellator. I just wanted to, because we're getting close to this fight right here is the one that I feel like not enough people are excited about. Clay Collard versus AJ McKee. Like it's this that's like a pride level matchup because it's like a guy from a heavy striking background against somebody that's like I don't even want to say McKee's a grappler because he's probably the when I think of a well-rounded mixed martial artist, he's the guy that you could put the picture in the definition.
Yeah, he's a lifetime raised in the world of MMA, and he's got all the tools. It's a great fight. I think it's hard not to pick McKee. He's 21-1, and his only losses to Pitbull in a controversial decision. So he in any other world he could easily still be undefeated with different judges in ringside. You don't want to get tired in that ring though with Collard. You get tired in front of Collard, he will pick you apart and he will eat up your guts with body shots and everything. So if McKee's cardio isn't on and if he's not able to finish this fairly early, I could see it turning halfway through the fight if he starts to fade. But I'm gonna go with McKee because I do believe in a world of MMA he's like a 9 and Collard's more of like a 7.
Yeah, one thing about Collard, man, I say we've had my old editor Joseph Correa runs a Front Proof Media, and I always tell him, because he always talks about the differences. We have a lot of off the record conversations about the differences with boxing and MMA and just the technique and how things have to change for depending on, especially with a lot of the crossover, we have the conversation fairly often. And one thing I feel like Collard is, people talk about the best boxing in MMA. Clay Collard is that guy for me because just if he plants his feet in front of you and he gets to fire off all those hand combinations, that's when you see like really good boxing in MMA. Like I don't know if he's just got really hard calves and legs that he can absorb all the, because people think they could leg kick him but he'll stand there and eat the kick so he could drop 3-4 punches at a guy. And I think that's what makes him so dangerous. So, and I think because he came from MMA to boxing and then back, I feel like that's why he knows that. I'd like to talk to him. I'm never in the same space with him when I get to cover PFL stuff, but that's something I'd like to ask him. If is it because he knows as an MMA fighter that went to boxing, does he know that people see him as a boxer and they try to like capitalize with leg kicks and stuff, and if he trains for that? But I mean, I guess he'd be giving away his whole fight camp if he answered that question. but I mean, that's what makes me, that's one of the things I like about this sport. I get to ask these guys these questions just because it's an answer that I want, and I'm sure other people would like to hear it. But yeah,
there's the Shadow Man. The Shadow.
Yeah, no, that's what I was saying. There's a couple, and it's not any. It's Henry Corrales. Like
it's because it is a late minute. He's fighting in a rematch now against Eric Pico. But yeah, no reason for not having a photo there.
Yeah, you got this John Castaneda silhouette instead of like
that'll be interesting to see right there if Pico's able to get his revenge. That was a brutal knockout he suffered at the hands of Corrales.
That's true. That's true.
So he was going for fighting new blood to a guy that owns one of his scalps. So it'll be interesting to see how that changes his mentality going into the fight.
Yeah, and it is an ESPN Plus pay-per-view just for folks that last week we were talking about we weren't sure how you watch this. That's a broadcast partner that we were unclear on. This is definitely an ESPN Plus pay-per-view that you can order. I don't know if it's in collaboration with ordering it through other means, but it's definitely through ESPN Plus because PFL is still an ESPN broadcast partner, and using both names, I guess they have to do it that way. So it's an early card, a lot of fights on Saturday. Hopefully you can get your errands done and
Yep,
watch
yep,
these.
yep. All right. There also is a Rising card on, I believe it's Friday night, landmark card. So there's a ton of action this
Mm-hmm.
weekend. Check it all out in Kaposa's combat schedule online or on Twitter.
Doing God's work.
Yep, yep, yep.
Kaposa.
Fans can follow the show at Combat Hour on Twitter, Coast to Coast Combat Hour on Instagram. Follow me, Matthew Hawkins, at MMA Hawk21 on Twitter and Instagram. Follow Ed at Carbazol on Twitter, Carbeerzol on Instagram, and Old Head Carb on Twitch. Thank you for listening, everyone, and have a good night.
You too. Thanks, Danny. Call this